This stop is Northern Boulevard and Morgan Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Little Neck Parkway. Transfers available to Q36, Q36 Limited and QM3. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Little Neck Parkway. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Marathon Parkway. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Marathon Parkway. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 244th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 244th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Douglaston Parkway. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Douglaston Parkway. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Alameda Avenue. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Alameda Avenue. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 232nd Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 232nd Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 227th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 227th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 223rd Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 223rd Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 221st Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 221st Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 219th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 219th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 217th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 217th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 215th Place. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 215th Place. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Bella Boulevard. Transfer available to Q13. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Bella Boulevard. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 212th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 212th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Corporal Kennedy Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Corporal Kennedy Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Clearview Expressway. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Clearview Expressway. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 204th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 204th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 202nd Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 202nd Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and Francis Lewis Boulevard. Transfer available to Q76. This stop is Northern Boulevard and Francis Lewis Boulevard. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 194th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 194th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 192nd Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 192nd Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 189th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 189th Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 171st Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 171st Street. Next stop, Northern Boulevard and 169th Street. This stop is Northern Boulevard and 169th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 165th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 165th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 162nd Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 162nd Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 158th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 158th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 158th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 158th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 156th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 156th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 149th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 149th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and 147th Street. This stop is Sanford Avenue and 147th Street. Next stop, Sanford Avenue and Parsons Boulevard. Transfer available to Q26. This stop is Sanford Avenue and Parsons Boulevard. Next stop, Roosevelt Avenue and Bound Street. Transfers available to Q15 and Q15A. This stop is Roosevelt Avenue and Bound Street. Next stop, Roosevelt Avenue and Union Street. Transfers available to the 7 train, Long Island Railroad, Q17, Q17 Limited, Q13, Q16, Q19, Q20A, Q20B, Q25, Q25 Limited, Q27, Q27 Limited, Q28, Q34, Q44 SBS, Q48, Q50 Limited, Q58, Q58 Limited, Q65, Q65 Limited and Q66. This stop is Roosevelt Avenue and Union Street. Next stop, Roosevelt Avenue and Lipman Plaza. This is the last stop. This stop is Roosevelt Avenue and Lipman Plaza. This is Q12 to Flushing Main Street Station. A fare is required to ride.